Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of the Great Reassessment Podcast. Today, I am really excited because I get to talk to somebody who I know and respect a lot, and he's a good friend of mine. We actually served together in the military for a number of years, and Mr. Eric Ross, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. It's great to see you. See the smile on your face, my man. Good health, all of that good stuff. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you too, brother.
Yes, sir.
So for those who are listening, I just kind of want to give just a 50,000-foot view of kind of who you are and what you do now. So I know you're a financial coach. You got out of the military, but give us sort of like the bird's eye view of what you've been up to the last 5 years and what you do now as a financial coach.
Okay, yeah. So, last 5 years. So we were working together 5 years ago in a family health clinic. I was a medic in the Air Force. I went through some life stuff. Cross-trained into flight attendant in the Air Force. So people don't think about this, like, Air Force One. The president, he flies on planes, Air Force planes. They need flight attendants. I didn't even know it was a job at first until COVID happened and we had to swab all of the pilots and flight attendants' noses. And I would just ask them, like, where y'all going this week? Oh, we're just going to Brazil for 3 nights. I said, man, I need that job. Like, I'm swabbing boogies, y'all in Brazil. So went to flight attendant school, became a flight attendant, did that actively for about 10 months active. And then in 2023, I got diagnosed with heart failure. So heart failure, I had to get out of the military. So I got medically retired, medically separated from the military. Finances was always big. And I just feel as though God has his way of calling you into your purpose. Because if I was in the military, I would have never been able to sit down with clients for hours at a time, educating them on finances, setting up, custodial accounts for their kids, teaching them how to build generational wealth, setting up their retirement accounts. I wouldn't have the time to do that flying all over the world. So I just use my testimony, my diagnosis as whatever you're going through in life, God is just telling you, hey, look, I'm trying to shift your focus elsewhere. So now I'm a financial coach. I'm a financial advisor. I have my licenses. And just this past month, I set up about 70, 75 investment accounts. So I'm really working. And I also have a program at a high school in my city where I'm just teaching kids financial literacy. So I'm just trying to be the change that I want to see in this world. So that's kind of a bird's eye view.
I remember when we were working together, this was the most amazing thing I've ever seen, I think. You paid off a considerable amount of debt. And would you tell us that story?
Yes. So, man, I started listening to a podcast, the Ramsey Show, Dave Ramsey. I'm pretty sure some people have heard of him. And they had a segment on the show. It's called the Debt-Free Scream. So regular people making regular income were paying off massive amounts of debt in a short amount of time. And I'm like, wow, they would do a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and they would say, I'm debt free. And I'm like, man, that sounds pretty cool. I would like to do that, because it's like, how would life look if you didn't have debt payments? If you weren't paying that car, you wasn't paying that credit card, this Best Buy credit card, you paying for a vacation from last year on the credit card, you got personal loans, student loans. I was the average American, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I buckled down. I paid off $54,000 of debt in 9 months. I had $11,000 in savings. I threw $10,000 towards the debt. I stopped living in a $2,000 a month apartment, moved back home with my dad to bring the rent down to $500 a month. So I had more money to throw towards the debt. And on top of working, from 7 a.m., we would go in at sometimes 6 a.m., get out at 4:30 p.m. And right at the 4:30, I was driving Uber from about 4:30 to 10 p.m. until I was sleepy. sometimes I would fall asleep in the parking lot after dropping somebody off. So that's the kind of the dedication that I had to get out of debt in such a short amount of time. I know a lot of people, they don't have that hunger in them, but I had that hunger in me. You know, people, they don't want to move back in with their dad. They don't want to drive Uber. They don't want to make an extra 4,000 a month driving Uber, tired, sleepy. But I just had a different type of hunger in me. And you know, I just tell people this: once you're out of debt, you give yourself a raise, because that 2,000 a month you're spending in minimum payments, you now have that 2,000 back in your pocket.
Wow. And so what other lifestyle choices did you have to make? So you had to stop spending money, I guess, too. So like, did you go out to eat? Were you buckling down? What were you doing?
Like Dave Ramsey said, you shouldn't be in a restaurant unless you washing dishes. So beans and rice, rice and beans. Yeah, I wasn't going out. I wasn't hanging out. I was buckling down, discipline. Yeah,
Man, that is remarkable. That's a lot of money in 9 months.
yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for you in that regard, because now that you're a financial coach, you went through that humbling experience,
Mm-hmm.
and you can talk to your clients like you've been in their situation before. So
Mm-hmm.
does that resonate with a lot of your clients, that when you talk to them about?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I bring up my testimonies all the time when I'm talking to my clients. I First, you got to give your clients hope. You know, you can get out of debt, you can build a savings, and you can be on your way to becoming financially free, financially independent. That's those are my three main touch points. You can do it. You can. That's the main thing. 2019, that's when I got debt free. 2020, I started saving for my retirement a little bit, maybe 200, $300 a month. But then I'm like, man, what am I doing? If I was paying all of this towards debt, why can't I pay myself first? So 2021, that's when I started maxing out my TSP in the military. You know, $2,200 a month coming out my paycheck, going into my retirement. And then on top of it, I was maxing out my Roth IRA, another 583 a month, 500 a month. It was like 6,000 now, 7,000 a year. So, you know, I'm paying myself about 3,000 a month, and towards my retirement. It's 2025 now. So from 2021 to now, I have over $210,000 in investments. So it's very possible. It doesn't take long to hit your first 100K if you locked in, you dedicated, you focus, and you want to max things out. And now it's just a race to the million. You know, my goal is, you know, by 35, I'm 31, by 35, hit my first million. I'm still investing pretty aggressively. And now I've added in, you know, some options trading. I'm gonna get with Mastro. He's the crypto man. And you know, we're gonna see what Bitcoin does this year. You know, I would love to have that conversation too.
Yeah, I mean, everything you've been talking about your journey and really humbling yourself. And we can talk about this first before we get into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of had to, it sounds like, stretch out your time horizons, because would you agree that our culture kind of teaches us to live in the moment and not delay our gratification towards the future?
Absolutely. It's the instant gratification. People want to take 10 vacations a year. They wanna get the new fancy car to impress people that they don't even care about. I drive a I drive a Nissan Altima. It's nothing fancy about it. No car payment, and I'm happy with it. Um, I'm reading a book, but it's called "Success Is Not an Accident," and people just need to start defining success on their own terms, and not through the lens of social media. You know, people see people on social media and think just because they got the fancy Benz or the BMW that's success. But success to me is being able to spend time with my family, my wife, my kids, buying my time freedom back versus having a nice car. Or who cares about the big house? Um, that's not success for me. You know, it's people, they got a big house, but it's not a home.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I want to pour into my family, pour into my wife, pour into my kids, be able to spend time with them, not work 80 hours a week and too tired to even have a conversation with my family. So, big thing is defining what success is to you, and yeah, forget about all of the instant gratification.
It's just kind of like assumed, like you have a car payment. You're always paying something off. Like, where do you think this comes from? Like this mentality of credit cards and taking on unnecessary debts and
Man, honestly, it's the American dream, as they call it. Go to school, get good grades, go work a good job for 40, 50 years and then retire. Within those 40, 50 years, you know, you got the job. You want to buy the house. That's the American dream. Pay the minimum payment for 30 years, get a car. Just, nobody's teaching these kids out of high school what to do with their finances and their money. Me growing up, I was just taught to go to school, get good grades, get a good job. It was nothing about debt, nothing about investing, nothing about building wealth. That's why the average American retires with only $200,000 for their retirement. The average American lives paycheck to paycheck. 7 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. 7 out of 10 people they don't have $1,000 saved for an emergency. They got to use a credit card in the event of an emergency. It's just not being taught. So that's why, I'm getting into these high schools and I'm talking to these kids and I'm letting them know the honest truth. You know, it's a lot of people living average and I want you to live above average. But, the $50,000 salary, the first week we're going over a budget. A lot of people don't have a budget. So a lot of people like, man, I don't know where my money went.
yeah.
I sit down. I had a client the other day. She had over $2,000 surplus in her budget, and she said it doesn't feel like it. I'm like, cause you pay your bills, and then you probably just start doing extra stuff. So we gotta assign each dollar an assignment so that you know where your money is going.
How are the high school students hearing your message and what's that like?
Yeah, man, they're pretty intrigued. They're pretty intrigued. I played a documentary called Inequality for All, and it was a lady making $21 an hour. You know, the high school students, they probably think that's good money, $21 an hour. But she was crying on the documentary because she only had $25 in her bank account, and she didn't know whether to put gas in her car or to buy food for the kids. And I just told them, like, look, this is the average American. You know, you might think $21 is fine and dandy when you're in high school, you don't have any kids, but what kind of job do you want to work, or what kind of business can you start up to, like I say, buy your time back so that you can have more freedom and you can earn more income? It's 4 ways to make money. You're either going to be an employee, you're going to be self-employed. Those two, employees, they trade their time for money. Self-employed, you basically own a job. You can be a business owner. You got people that work for you, or an investor. You got money that works for you. I believe an investor is the easiest way to become financially free. The money don't sleep. You don't have to hire and fire people, but it's also great to be a business owner.
I think what kids need to understand now is what is money?
Mm-hmm.
And most Americans, I don't think they understand what money is. They don't understand that you're trading your time for it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is the dollar bills that you're trading your time for, that is it's like storing your life. It's storing that hour that you worked so that you can redeem it at a later time.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on debt and all those things, but like, what about money printing? When
Mm-hmm.
the government can devalue your money at 2-3% a year, or even more, like we had under Joe Biden, and that money that was storing their time and energy is now worth less.
Mm.
That's the part that breaks my heart is people they're having their lives, their time on this earth stolen from them through inflation. And so how do you get around that? And like you said, I think it's with investing, because with investing, you are at least staying above that inflationary production.
Yeah, yeah. So right now, I believe the inflation rate is like 3.2. So I tell clients, I teach from the rule of 72. It's you take whatever interest your money is earning, divide it by 72, and that'll tell you how many years it'll take for your money to double. So in a bank, they typically will pay you 0.1%. So, the banks are happy to hold your money. They actually invest your money while it's sitting in their bank account, and they happily pay you the 0.1%, while the stock market had averaged above 20% the past 2 years. So I try to teach people how to be a owner and not a loaner. When you got your money sitting in the bank account, you're a loaner. You're loaning the money to the bank. They're investing it. I want you to be a owner, and you invest your own money. Um, a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. That's another concept that I teach. I got this one illustration from Morningstar. If you was to invest $1 into the stock market in 1926, in 2023, that $1 would be worth $57,000 today. So $100 would have been 5.7 million a day. So that's the power of investing. But your money sitting in a shoebox from 1926 to 2023 is still going to be a dollar. So that's how you get ahead in life. You got to invest your money. You can't be scared. I know people that are scared to invest. They think the stock market is going to crash. They always read the newspapers, I guess. But even with all of the crashes, the housing bubble, the XYZ, the .com, the ABC, I don't know. The stock market is still averaged above 10% since it's been around. So, yes, invest your money. You got to earn at least 3%, or
Yeah.
technically you're losing money. So the CDs, the bond funds, it's not cutting it. You gotta get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah. And it kind of just goes back to that. It's like you have to think about what kind of future you want. The decision to buy a new pair of Nikes or a new car today, that's too easy.
Mm-hmm.
But to say no and say, hey, I'm going to invest this money into the future and let it grow. That way I don't have to deal with all the crap. Like you've been in debt. Like, like what does it feel like to be $54,000 in debt?
Man, I was honestly, I was numb to it. Like I said, I was the average American. Most people think this stuff is normal. They think it's cool to have $1,000 in payments to 5 different credit cards, a car payment, and a personal loan. People think it's normal. I was walking around like this is normal. You pay a car off, you go get another one. But people gotta wake up. It's not. Well, if it's normal is broke. That's what I tell people. Normal is broke. I don't want to be normal. I want to be the weird guy. I want to be the guy who hasn't had a car payment in 25 years. I'm pretty sure the weird guy with the no car payment for 25 years is doing better off than the guy with the $1,000 car payment. I guarantee you. If you got it, pay it cash. Pay it cash. I'm not buying car. No, I can't afford it if I can't pay cash for it. I can't afford it. That's how you got to look at it. Use your money.
Yeah.
Use your money. It's weird. It's normal.
Did you ever go on the Dave Ramsey show?
I said I was, but I never called in.
No, you never called in?
Maybe I'll do it when I'm a millionaire. I'm like, look, I've been listening to you guys since 2018, and yeah, maybe I'll do the debt-free scream and tell them I'm a millionaire too. Thank you. 10 years later, that's the goal.
I listened to Dave Ramsey have a conversation with Tucker Carlson, and I don't agree with everything Dave Ramsey says, but I understand that he's trying to help people get out of debt. He's trying to help people who have gotten themselves into a very sticky situation.
Yeah.
Maybe the same advice he would tell them versus somebody who's handled their money well for 20 years. would be different. So I get that that's
Mm-hmm.
his list. But him and Tucker were talking about how much money in advertising credit card companies pay. It is insane how much money the credit card companies, like, they're involved in everything. Like, they I think they spend more money in advertising. I hope I get this right, than the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, like, combined,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
because they are making a killing off interest payments that
Yes.
people who get themselves into debt. They want you to be in debt.
Yes. So you remember I talked about the rule of 72? So it can either work with you, you're investing your money, it's working with you, or it can work against you. And you're paying 20, the average, I think, interest rate on the credit card is like 29.99 right now. So if at 12% your money's invested, it's doubling every 6 years, but at 30%, that means their money is doubling every 2.5, 3 years. So it's hard to get out of credit card debt because it's a revolving debt. So they charging you this 29% interest each month.
Yeah.
Um, it's not a fixed debt. So they tell you, like, if you only pay the minimum payment, it'll take you 100 years to pay this $5,000 credit card off. They tell you this. Like, it's not a secret. They put it on the statements. Um, it's a game. They gamify credit cards to draw people in. And I want y'all to think about this. They offer you 1.5% cash back, but you have to, you know, you got to pay off your credit card at the end of the month, or you're getting charged 30%. So it's unequal. Like, they're going to offer you 1.5%. If you don't pay it off, you're paying 30%. When I started looking at it like that, I was like, man, this game isn't even fun. I got to spend $100,000 to get $1,000. I've never seen a millionaire say, I got wealthy because of credit cards. Now, cool. If you're smart with money, you can pay it off. Great. But if you're if you're bad with money, stay away from credit cards. It can either build you up or it can crush you down.
Well, hey man, let's just switch gears here
Yeah, let's do
to,
it.
you had mentioned Bitcoin an earlier bit ago. What do you think of Bitcoin?
I mean, it's a tanker. People doubt it every time, but I think it silences the doubters each and every time. First they would say, "Oh, it'll never hit 10,000." It hit 10,000. It'll never hit 50,000. It hit 50,000. It's not going to hit 100,000. What did it do? It hit 100,000. It's outperformed the stock market. So me being a financial advisor, I'm not against it at all. I look at numbers and returns, and it's newer. Yeah, of course it's newer. It hasn't been around since the 70s or the 60s like a mutual fund. It's what, like 14 years old, maybe 15.
Mhm.
But it's outperformed everything in the past 15 years. So I mean, it's a tanker. I just tell people, look, take care of your long-term stuff first. Max out your Roth IRA. If you got a 401k, if you can max that out, max that out. If you got more money after that, let's get more risky. Let's jump into some crypto. Let's jump into some option calls. But if you can't even max out your stuff first, then you got other priorities that you need to focus on in life. I would say. But yeah, I'm not against Bitcoin. I own a little bit of Bitcoin. I I have about 20 grand in MicroStrategy. So I mean, that's like the stock market of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I've been learning about Bitcoin for a while now, and started my Bitcoin journey in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I think I'm at the point where I think Bitcoin, this sounds hyperbolic, but I think it's the last hope for freedom survival.
Mm-hmm.
I think the money we use is broken. The dollar is broken.
Okay.
It's what we have, right? It's the money we have to spend if you want to go to Walmart or if you want to go get gas in your car.
Mm-hmm.
But the the best savings mechanism to protect yourself from inflation, from money printing, from the government having the power to tell you or give you permission where you can send money, who you can send money to, the freedom to transact with whoever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bitcoin saves that. And it is like the purest embodiment of sound money.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that are sound money. Gold is sound money. Commodities are sound money. There's things that are sound money, but like the purest embodiment of all of them, I believe, is Bitcoin,
Yeah.
mainly because just that permissionless aspect that nobody can block you from transacting with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a limited supply, like there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Gold is nice, but the government can still take it away from you. The government's done that in the past. If you had to get on a plane and leave, you can't take all your gold with you, but you can take 100% of your Bitcoin with you right here in your mind. And so I think it allows people to become their own banks. And yeah, it's nice because as a savings mechanism, it's going up, right? And
Yeah.
that's because that's really just a reflection of how much money printing they're doing, So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you can invest in MicroStrategy and you're investing in stocks and your money can grow that way, and at least you're not losing the value of what you traded, your time and labor for this money. Your money's not losing its value to inflation. At least it's staying ahead of it a little bit. But Bitcoin is the greatest performing asset in the history of mankind. It averages 40% a year, which is insane if you ask
Mm-hmm.
any
Yeah, that's pretty good.
investor there.
So for the 15 years, it's averaged about 40%.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
been years where it's gone down, but compared to, when you average it all out, it
Yeah.
averages about 40% a year. And so there's obviously that's attractive, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't like the gains? But I think
Right.
even the the even better aspect is what what going on a Bitcoin journey does for somebody. We were talking earlier about paying off your debt and adopting like those low time preference attitudes. You
Mm-hmm.
have to value the future more than you value the present.
Mm-hmm.
And Bitcoin teaches people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in 2021, I had to watch Bitcoin go from 69,000 back to 15K.
Mm.
And I did not sell my Bitcoin. I held on to it the whole time,
Yeah.
but it kind of made me numb to those immediate, like what's happening in the immediate future. It's like, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like 10 years down the road now,
Yeah.
years down the road. And ultimately, I think Bitcoin stands for freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of what you see happening in the United States and around the world today is that people want freedom. People had their freedoms taken away during COVID, and we were told where we could go, what we could do, where we could eat, how many people could
Mm-hmm.
go to Walmart. And I think people are looking back and reflecting now, like, man, that's not the world I want to live in. I do not want to live in that type of world. I think if you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian, I don't think anybody cares anymore. They just like, I don't want to live in that type of world. And Bitcoin is a tool that protects you from that because, remember the Canadian trucker protests?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was big news so all these truckers, semi-truck drivers in Canada they were protesting because of the vaccine and not being able to work, and they were protesting, and the government of Canada seized all the money. They froze their bank accounts, all the people that were donating to their GoFundMe. They seized all that stuff, except the Bitcoin. They could not seize the Bitcoin. I think what you're seeing is right now people are kind of trying to find ways where they can protect themselves and have the most freedom. And one way that that's happening is with the growth of Bitcoin, the growth of financial literacy, and people trying to learn about money. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is health. People, I think, are trying to get healthy again. Not everybody, but there is there's like an awakening happening with like all the garbage that's in our food, what the government tells you to eat and do, and these how they treat chronic illnesses. It's all bullshit.
Yeah. Hey, I like that. Coming from me who got diagnosed with heart failure at 29, I worked out every day. Sure, I drank on the weekends, but I feel like anybody in their 20s drink on the weekends. But I was a heavy drinker on the weekends. I will say that. But yeah, I done went completely plant based.
Huh.
I juice, and I look at it like this, man. If medications worked, why do we need refills for the rest of our lives if it really worked? People gotta people gotta read in between the lines here.
Yeah.
I don't think in America we have a healthcare system. I feel as though we have a pharmaceutical sales industry. They pitch you on these medications. They put me on medications. They say, yeah, you're probably going to have to take these medications for the rest of your life. No, I don't remember the last time I took the medication.
Huh.
I can run on the treadmill. I can I can do 4 miles on a treadmill with heart failure.
Are you comfortable talking about that story?
Yeah.
So you had at 29, what happened?
Mhm. So 29, I took a PT test in the military. I got a 95% on it. A week later, I tried to go to bed, and every time I laid flat on my back, it was like I was suffocating. It was like, and I had to sit back up. I'm like, man, I got 0 hours of sleep that night. I could not sleep. I'm like, man, I must be like congested or something. I woke up the next morning. I'm like, I must be congested. It was hard for me to breathe. It felt like my right lung wasn't expanding every time I took a deep breath. I'm like, man. So I had a humidifier. I'm like, I put some Vicks on my chest. I'm like, man, open me up. Like, and when I would walk up the steps, I was out of breath. I'm like, man, I walked up 10 steps and I'm like, man, I'm out of breath. And like I said, last week I took a PT test and got a 95%. So I'm like, something ain't adding up. So I did a COVID swab. Thought maybe I had COVID, but that came back negative. So I wasn't gonna go to the doctors, but something told me like, man, just go to the doctor. Like something ain't right. So I went to I went to the ER. I told them what was going on. They did a chest X-ray. They checked my lungs. They said, okay, your lungs are clear. Cause I'm thinking like maybe I got a blood clot in my lung or something. So no blood clot in my lungs. They did an EKG that was abnormal. They drew my blood. They said that my troponin levels were like above 1,000. The normal range is like 25. And your troponin levels, that indicates heart damage. So from that blood test, that's when they took me back and they admitted me to the ER. I seen a sign that said stroke. I'm like, dang, I don't think I had a stroke. And then they was like, do you want to see the chaplain? I'm like, man, what's going on? Like, am I about to die tonight? What's up? And I had to get an echocardiogram. And echocardiogram is basically like an ultrasound of your heart. And they told me that my heart was functioning at 20%. And I was like, man, I'm glad I came in at 20% and not 10% or 5%. Cause I had a buddy of mine, his brother, his heart was functioning at 10%. And a week later he died. So I was like, man, I'm glad I came in at 20%. So I was admitted to the hospital. I stayed there for 4 nights. I had to leave with a life vest. So basically like a defibrillator vest that you put on. If anything was to happen to me, it would just shock me back. I wore that for 6 months. I was living very meticulous, very specific. but I still felt like something was missing in my life. And New Year's of last year or 2 years ago, that's when I started going to church. That's when I got back. I always believed in God, but I never had that relationship with God. And that's when the anxiety started to disappear. That's when the depression started to disappear. And that's when I just started to be filled with peace. Because I'm like, man, I can do everything right about my heart. But like I say, something's still missing. And having that connection to God just was like, man, it's not my battle. I did everything I could do. This is the Lord's battle. And I had crazy faith. I'm like, man, I'm not gonna take medicine for the rest of my life. And I feel great.
Man, I love that you brought God into that at the end. And actually, it's just crazy you mentioned that because this morning our pastor said something pretty profound that I think it ties into what you just said, is that like death precedes life.
Mm-hmm.
And he was preaching over the story of Joseph. And in Genesis, if anybody's familiar with that story, Joseph gets sold into slavery. He gets falsely accused of sexually assaulting Potiphar's wife in Egypt, and he goes to prison for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
He's brought down really low. And then he has, through a number of things, God's providence, he comes to like this resurrected place of like, now he's over the entire kingdom
Mm-hmm.
and second only to Pharaoh. Man, sometimes our suffering and our trials, like we are brought really low, and God sovereignly ordains that so we can have a resurrected new
New life.
life that
Yeah.
had it not been for that, who
Yeah.
knows?
He'd take you out the darkness, show you the light. The old me had to die. I was the worst type of guy. I was toxic. I was a manipulator, a gaslighter. uh, I was horrible. I was selfish. And like I say, just finding God, getting that relationship with God, you wouldn't even people don't know this Eric versus the old Eric. Two completely different people. Like you say, the resurrection, the altar, people think the altar is something pretty, but the altar is that's where blood is sacrifice, death. That's what the altar represents. And you the old you is dying. Marriage, you become an individual. You go from an individual to a covenant. You, your spouse, and God. So yeah, the individualistic
And
ways gotta go.
going back real quick to, that first week, have you, like, I imagine you've done this already, but like, is there anything that you can think of that like may have caused that? Like, was there like
The heart failure.
a medication, a vaccine, or like what do you think
Yeah,
preceded all that?
I think it was just. I think it might have been my toxic way of living. To be honest, I would love to blame the vaccine, but I can't because I didn't take the vaccine. So
So for anybody out there listening, thinking that it was that you did not,
I
you're
can't
not like
even.
that
I can't even.
Bronny
Yeah.
James story where he took the vax and apparently,
A few days later, that's when he had the cardiac arrest. Or
no, but I'm saying he was a young, healthy
yeah,
athlete, and like,
yeah,
how else could this guy get a heart attack?
yeah.
But that's
I,
not your
it's
situation.
not. It's not. I can't. I would love. Look, trust me. I think that these kids are getting way too many vaccines. Um, I love RFKJ. Uh, hopefully he do some good things. I know the politicians are shaking in their boots because if he gets that position, he said, "Man, I want good science." He said he's not against vaccines, but he wants good science. Is there a reason that kids need 90 vaccines? Versus when he was a kid, it was only 3, and autism rates were 1 in 10,000, and now it's like 1 in 30. 1 in 34, the autism rate. So is there any correlation between 3 vaccines versus 90 vaccines and the autism rates being 1 in 10,000 versus 1 in 30?
Anything else around that time that like,
'Cause like I say, I think it was me living a toxic life. My heart didn't attack me. I attacked my heart. My heart didn't fail me. I failed my heart. Um, the doctors, they ran every test, every PET scan, every MRI, and they said, we don't know where this came from. Just here, take this medicine. That's why I say I think we live in a pharmaceutical sales industry. They don't, it's no holistic healing going on. I actually went to see a holistic healer, and Western doctors, they don't believe in this holistic. Some of them starting to, but holistic healing, the Dr. Sebi's, those type of guys. He said that I had 2 strands of streptococcus bacteria in my blood. It traveled to my heart, and over time, that caused my heart to weaken. And he said that the reason the doctors are seeing an enlarged heart on these MRIs is because you got all of these white blood cells that are at your heart trying to fight off this infection. So what you got to do is cleanse your blood. It's crazy. They literally give you a wand to hold. They tell you hold your hands like this. They got vials of different vitamins, different bacteria, different diseases, and what they put into that, I don't know, it's like some magnetic field. Your hand will either open or it won't open. And then that doctor will tell you, like, yeah, you're deficient in this, or you have these parasites. It's pretty crazy. And but that gave me the most closure. Cause like I say, the doctors, they just told me, look, we don't know where it came from, but here, just take this medicine. And I did get streptococcus bacteria a few times the previous year. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like I said, I was living a toxic lifestyle. I was getting strep throat, and I don't know, maybe I ain't finished the antibiotics or something. I don't know, and it stayed in my heart. I mean, my throat traveled to my heart. I'm like, that's better than the doctor telling me they don't know. So,
well, I mean, I think people are waking up that how you live in your 20s, the rooster's going to come home to crow, or however that they say
yeah,
eventually. What you sow in your young age, you will reap when you're old. Stress and anxiety can play a big role in that. But man, I'm so happy that you're looking great, and to see you today, and
yeah,
just to connect with you, again, and
yeah, man.
see you're married, you have a beautiful daughter, and your family's growing. I pray
Yeah,
blessing on you, man, and it's just so good
appreciate
to
that.
see what you're doing with these young kids and teaching them financial literacy and all that. And so where could people, if there's anybody out there in debt, how could they get a hold of you to maybe get some help?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, Eric Ross. In parentheses, I don't know how to change this, but in parentheses it says Nino Brown. I don't Eric Ross, Nino Brown. I post financial tips daily, free financial advice daily. My consultations are free. You don't have to worry about that. Um, I got my website, How Money Works. We'll put all of this in the description, just because it's long. And
Okay.
yeah, reach out to me. Let's go over a comprehensive financial plan. Let's figure out what your retirement income goals are. What do you want to do? Do you want to leave money to your kids? Are you properly protected? The whole nine. Thank you, Mastro, for sharing this platform with me. It's good to see you. You're looking sharp. You're looking good. I love you, my man. And yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Right back at you. Love you too, bro. Anyways, Eric Ross, everybody, we'll put how you can find him in the show notes. And thank you, man. Thank you so much for coming on
Yes,
today.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you.
And God bless.
All right now.